All right, so are you ready to dive into the Tao? We're going to be cracking open the Zhuangzi today.
All right.
Specifically, some excerpts that really get at the heart of this ancient philosophy.
Yeah.
It's a wild ride, let me tell you, full of stories and dialogues that just might leave you scratching your head,
Right.
but also spark some serious aha moments.
What I find fascinating about this Zhuangzi is it uses these almost mythical figures and stories to really kind of nudge us beyond our typical way of thinking.
It's like it's showing us something that we can't quite grasp with logic alone. And speaking of grasping, we're going to follow this guy named Zhi, who's on a quest to understand the Tao.
Okay.
What do you think his biggest hurdle is going to be?
Well, Z's journey embodies a very human desire, the yearning to find answers to grab hold of the ultimate truth.
Yeah.
But he'll find is that the path to understanding the Tao isn't straightforward.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
So he heads north and encounters this figure, Wu Weiwei, who embodies the Tao, but get this, through unknowing.
It feels counterintuitive, right? The more seeks knowledge, the more he bumps into this idea that true understanding might lie in letting go of that very pursuit.
Yeah.
What are we supposed to make of that?
It's a paradox. This Zhuangzi keeps circling back. Could think of it like this. Have you ever noticed how sometimes when you try too hard to figure something out, you just get more tangled up?
Oh, for sure.
The Zhuangzi suggests that approaching the Tao with a mind cluttered with preconceptions might actually be what's blocking us from seeing it.
Instead of adding more, we need to clear the way.
Exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
so how does he handle this curveball?
Well, he keeps asking questions. He even goes straight to the top, seeking out the Yellow Emperor,
Wow.
a figure known for his wisdom. But instead of giving Z a clear-cut answer about how to attain the Tao, the Yellow Emperor tells him to basically stop thinking, stop dwelling, stop trying to follow a set path.
That's kind of a mind-blowing response. Does that mean we're supposed to just give up trying to understand anything?
Not exactly. The Yellow Emperor isn't saying knowledge is bad. He's pointing out the limits of our intellect when it comes to grasping something as vast and subtle as the Tao One. Imagine trying to capture the ocean in a teacup.
Yeah.
The Zhuangzi is suggesting we need a different kind of knowing, one that comes from stillness, from a deep, intuitive understanding that goes beyond our usual mental chatter.
So how does Z react to that? Because he's clearly someone who likes to think things through.
Well, he goes on to meet another interesting character, Kwa.
Oh, okay.
Now, Kwa tries to answer Z's questions, but then completely forgets what he was going to say. It's almost like the very act of trying to articulate the Tao makes it slip away.
It's like trying to explain a dream. The more you try, the less sense it makes. So does the Zhuangzi offer any guidance on how to approach this unknowing? Because I think for a lot of us, the idea of letting go of thinking feels, well, unthinkable.
Right. Well, the Zhuangzi doesn't give us like a step-by-step guide or anything.
Right.
But it does offer these potent metaphors and stories that point us in the right direction. It's like those Zen currents that you mentioned. They're designed to kind of break through our logical mind
Okay.
and spark a different kind of insight.
Okay. I'm intrigued. Give me an example. What kind of story are we talking about here?
Well, remember how the Yellow Emperor compared those who claim to know the Tao to those who just don't seek it at all?
Yeah.
It's those who aren't striving or claiming to have all the answers who seem to embody it most fully.
Right. It's like Wu Weiwei, who just sat there and is unknowing, and Kwa, who literally forgot what he was going to say.
Yeah.
Neither of them were trying to, like, define the Tao, and maybe that's exactly what allowed them to be so in tune with it. It's like they were plugged into a different frequency.
And the Zhuangzi goes on to describe the Tao as being like the vastness of the sea, always providing, always there, yet never depleted. Imagine standing on a beach, looking out at the immensity of the ocean,
Yeah.
that feeling of awe, and also how small you feel in comparison.
Yeah.
That's kind of a taste of what this Zhuangzi is trying to convey.
So how do we tap into that vastness, that inexhaustible source? Do we need to go live in a cave by the ocean or something?
Not necessarily. The Zhuangzi wants to show us how to access this way of being through these vivid stories and analogies. Take the story of Beiyi and Nikui.
Okay, remind me about that one.
Beiyi is like this master, and he's asked about the Tao, and he tells Niki to look upon the world like a newborn calf. Think about it.
Yeah.
A newborn calf doesn't judge, doesn't analyze, it just experiences things with this pure, open curiosity.
Yeah.
That's the kind of perception this Zhuangzi is encouraging.
So it's like hitting the reset button on how we see the world, but how do we actually do that? It's easy to say, be like a calf, but how do you actually cultivate that kind of fresh perspective in the middle of, like, everyday life?
The Zhuangzi offers some practical advice. Remember when Bei Yi told Nietzsche to align your form and focus your gaze?
Yeah.
That's about paying attention to your physical presence, your breath, the sensations in your body.
So it's about bringing yourself back to the present moment instead of getting lost in your thoughts or worries, kind of like meditation.
Exactly. When you do that, you create space for that deeper wisdom to emerge, to see things from a fresh perspective. You're not escaping the world, but rather changing how you relate to it.
That makes a lot of sense. It reminds me of that other story in the Zhuangzi about Shun and his chancellor Cheng Shun has this realization that his body, his life, even his descendants aren't really his possessions.
Yes, it's a powerful story about recognizing the impermanence of everything. We tend to cling so tightly to things, but this Wanzi is urging us to consider, what if we loosened our grip a little? What if we saw ourselves as part of a larger flow rather than these separate, isolated individuals?
It's a humbling perspective for sure, but
Yeah.
wouldn't embracing that lead to a passive and active life? If nothing really belongs to me, why bother doing anything?
That's where a lot of people misunderstand the idea of non-action. It's not about doing nothing. It's about acting in alignment with the natural flow of things. The Zhuangzi uses the example of a skilled woodcarver who creates effortlessly.
Yeah.
Have you ever been so absorbed in an activity that you lost all track of time?
Oh, yeah, totally. When I'm writing, sometimes I'll look up and hours have flown by.
That's non-action in action. It's finding that sweet spot where your actions are effortless and aligned with the task at hand.
So non-action is about finding that flow state.
Exactly. And the Zhuangzi is saying this kind of effortless action isn't limited to woodworking or writing. It's available to us in all areas of life. The challenge is recognizing when we're creating unnecessary resistance by forcing things or clinging to rigid expectations.
So instead of trying to control every detail, it's more about trusting the process.
Precisely. That's when you start to tap into the flow of the Tao. It's
Yeah.
about finding that balance between action and non-action,
Yeah.
between effort and ease.
Okay, so the Zhuangzi is about aligning with the Tao to live a more effortless life. But how do we actually know we're in tune with the Tao? What are some signs that we might be experiencing it without even realizing it?
I think this Zhuangzi would say those moments when things just seem to fall into place, when you experience a sense of effortless flow, that's the Tao at work.
Mm-hmm.
Those moments of serendipity when you run into the right person at the right time
Okay.
or an unexpected opportunity arises, it's like you're suddenly riding a wave instead of fighting against the current.
I love that image. It's about recognizing that the Tao is everywhere and in everything if we just open our eyes to see it. But, the Zhuangzi isn't all serious metaphors and profound insights. It also uses a lot of humor and satire to make its points. Why do you think that is?
Because taking ourselves too seriously is a trap. The Zhuangzi uses humor to poke fun at our human foibles, our tendency to cling to rigid beliefs and ideas.
Hmm.
Remember that passage where it talks about propriety being just the decoration of the Tao and the root of disorder? It's like a wink and nudge to say, hey, sometimes our attempts to be good or proper actually take us further from the truth.
So instead of trying to force ourselves to fit into some predetermined mold, it's about embracing that playful, spontaneous energy.
Exactly, that playfulness, that lightness of being is a key part of the Taoist perspective.
Yeah.
It's about letting go of rigidity and embracing the fluidity of life. It's a bit like when you're telling a joke and you get so caught up in trying to be funny that you completely lose the punchline.
Right.
But when you relax and let the humor flow naturally, that's when it really lands.
It's about trusting the process, even when it comes to humor.
Right. The Zhuangzi is full of this playful, paradoxical wisdom. It invites us to see the world with a sense of wonder and amusement, to laugh at ourselves, to find joy in the unexpected.
So we've talked a lot about non-action, but the Zhuangzi also emphasizes living a full engaged life. How do those two ideas coexist?
That's a great question. And I think the Zhuangzi would say it's about finding that balance between being fully present in the world and yet not attached to its outcomes.
So it's not about withdrawing from the world and living like a hermit.
Not at all. It's about participating fully in life, experiencing all its joys and sorrows, but not getting caught up in the drama. Imagine you're watching a play. You can be moved by the story, even shed a tear,
Right.
but, it's not real.
So you're fully immersed in the experience, but you also have that sense of detachment.
Exactly. And the Zhuangzi reminds us that life is a bit like a grand cosmic play. We're all actors on a stage playing our parts. But we have a choice.
Mm.
Do we get swept up in the drama, or do we play our roles with a sense of awareness and even humor?
Okay, so how do we live in accordance with the Tao? What does that actually look like in our day-to-day lives?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The Zhuangzi would probably say it's about finding that sweet spot between being fully engaged in the world, but not getting overly attached to its outcomes.
So being in the world, but not of it, like that old saying.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that you're part of something much larger than yourself, but also remembering to find joy in the journey.
I love that it's like being present for the dance, but not getting too caught up in the steps.
Beautifully put. It's about finding that balance, that harmony between action and non-action.
Okay, so if the Tao is this all-encompassing, ever-present reality, how can we become more aware of it in our everyday lives? What are some things we can do to cultivate that awareness?
One way is to pay attention to those moments of effortless flow, of synchronicity, of unexpected joy. The Zhuangzi would say those are glimpses of the Tao at work, those moments where you're aligned with the natural flow of existence.
So it's not just about meditating or retreating from the world, it's about recognizing those moments of alignment in the midst of everyday life.
Exactly. The Tao is everywhere and in everything if we just open our eyes to see it.
You know, after diving into these excerpts from the Zhuangzi, one image that really stuck with me is that of seeing the world like a newborn calf.
It's such a powerful reminder to approach life with that same sense of like fresh wonder, free from preconceptions and judgment.
Exactly. It's like the Zhuangzi is gently nudging us to take off those blinders we've been wearing and just see the world with new eyes. But I think for a lot of us, the idea of letting go of our need to control and define everything can be a little daunting, you know?
Right.
It's almost like stepping off a cliff and trusting that you'll fly.
That's the paradox, isn't it? The Zhuangzi seems to suggest that true freedom comes from surrendering to the mystery, to the unknown, to the ever-changing nature of reality.
It's almost counterintuitive. We're so conditioned to believe that we need to figure everything out to have all the answers. But what if the real key is letting go of that need to know?
That's where trust comes in, trusting that the Tao, the underlying intelligence of the universe, has your back. It's about aligning yourself with the natural flow of things rather than resisting it.
So it's not about giving up on our dreams or aspirations. It's about finding a more harmonious way to pursue them, like learning to dance with life instead of trying to wrestle it into submission.
Beautifully put. It's about letting go of the outcome of the need to control every detail. It's about trusting the process and knowing that the Tao will guide you where you need to go.
I think a lot of spiritual traditions talk about this concept of surrender.
Yeah.
But the Zhuangzi offers a very unique perspective on it. It's not just about surrendering to a higher power. It's about surrendering to the flow of existence itself.
And the Zhuangzi emphasizes that this surrender is not about becoming passive or inactive. It's about finding that effortless action that arises when we're aligned with the Tao.
So it's not about giving up. It's about showing up fully, but with a sense of ease and detachment.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that you're part of something much larger than yourself, that your individual life is just one small part of this grand cosmic dance.
And that realization can be incredibly freeing. You know, it's like that weight has been lifted from your shoulders and you're able to move through life with more grace and fluidity.
The Zhuangzi invites us to see the world through a different lens, to experience life with more wonder, more humor, and more acceptance.
Well, it's been an amazing deep dive into the Zhuangzi.
It has.
We've explored some pretty profound concepts from the nature of the Tao to the importance of non-action and the power of stories and metaphors. But what I hope you take away from this is that sense of invitation to see the world like a newborn calf, to cultivate that fresh perspective, that beginner's mind that allows you to experience life with a sense of awe and delight.
And to remember that the Tao is not some distant, abstract concept. It's here and now. In every breath you take, in every step you take, in every interaction you have, it's the underlying current that connects us all.
So as you go about your day, see if you can catch a glimpse of the Tao at work in your own life. Notice those moments of effortless flow, of synchronicity, of unexpected joy. Those are whispers from the Tao, inviting you to remember who you truly are. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive of Tao.